Welcome to the Gab Talks by the Independent Press Award. I'm your hostess, Gabby Olzak. To participate in the 2024 Book Award competitions, please visit independentpressaward.com and NewYorkCityBigBookAward.com. This podcast, we will be chatting with children's author Allen Northcutt about his debut book and holiday classic, The Legend of Christmas, A Christmas Story. A Louisville, Kentucky native, Allen joins the Marine Corps after college. He flew fighter jets in Vietnam and completed 191 combat missions in 10 months. He earns the Distinguished Flying Cross for heroism during an aerial flight in support of military operations. Allen was also awarded 11 Air Medals and the National Defense Award. Thank you for your service, Allen. In addition to being a decorated fighter pilot, he is also a retired investment banker. Allen is passionate about the outdoors, adventure recreation, competitive sports, and spending quality time with family and old friends. Allen wrote the first draft of The Legend of Christmas, A Christmas Story on Christmas Eve in 1982, while dealing with the many issues of raising a learning disabled child. The manuscript sat in a drawer for 29 years. Motivation to resurrect Christmas came from friends' encouragement and the belief that Christmas could become the first new perennial Christmas character in the past 50 years. Congratulations, Allen, and welcome to the Gab Talks.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
Thank you. So hold up your book, Allen. I'm going to hold it up also. Okay. So The Legend of Christmas is your debut children's picture book. You wrote the first draft, Allen, in 1982. Is that right?
Yes.
Wow. So what inspired you on that particular Christmas Eve to write The Legend of Christmas? Tell us about it.
Well, I was separated from my wife, and I was living in a one room little tenant house with a bare light bulb, where the toilet and the sink and the shower and the bed and everything were all in one room.
Yikes.
And I said, and I was living on $600 a month after, I had paid the mortgage in my children's school and all that. And I had $600 a month to buy groceries and gas to get back and forth to work. So I said, I need to do something to make some money. So it being Christmas Eve, I said, why don't I write a Christmas story? So I had a girlfriend that I rode horses with, and whenever she saw a rabbit, she'd say, oh, there's Nosy the rabbit and Pokey the turtle.
Okay.
And she had a nickname for all these animals. So I said, why don't I write a story about Christmas Eve and with all the animals with their nicknames? So one of them was Nosy the rabbit brought carrots for snacks in a big bright red candle made of red wax. And I'm not an author, I'm not a poet, I'm not any of that. But after sitting there by myself and drinking half a bottle of bourbon, it just flowed.
I'm sure it did. But so I understand then, Allen, it sat in a drawer for 29 years. So why did you decide to suddenly resurrect it and have it published?
I'm not sure what I think somebody was reading I had a good friend that I helicopter skied with, and he's a architect, and he has a lady that works for him that's a prolific artist.
Okay.
And he did the sketches, but then she did all the drawings. And I had sort of a draft copy, and I said, I need to smooth this up and see if it can't be the story that all the parents and grandparents read to the little 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds and less on Christmas Eve, just like Frosty the Snowman or all those.
Well, I definitely think it has the potential to be a classic. You could put the book down, Allen, because I'm going to hold it up right here for you.
Okay.
So the main protagonist of the story is a moose named Ugly. He's ugly in name, really only. He's a pretty nice fellow. He's by nature, he's very kind, very sweet. Alan, share the themes and the messages you hope to convey in the story.
Well, the theme of the story is that it's an ugly duckling kind of story.
Okay.
Everybody makes fun of the ugly duckling and all, and they made fun of Chris Moose, and he was always on the outside. And on Christmas Eve, they had the Christmas party, but he couldn't fit.
Well, don't give too much of it away. Don't give too much of the book away. So, okay. What challenges in your life inspired you to come up with this ugly duckling type of story?
Well, because I've always kind of tried to challenge myself to go one more step. I ran some 5Ks and then 10Ks, then a mini marathon, and said, I think I'll try and run a marathon. So I ran the New York Marathon.
Wow! Congratulations.
And thanks. And it's interesting. I've got a little picture on my wall that has my New York Marathon time, and it's a person that he said, somebody asked me right before the marathon who I thought my competition was. I looked at him and told him my name.
That's a good one. I love that.
I'm my competition.
Aren't we all?
See if I can do a personal best.
And did you? You did your personal best?
Well, I've only run one marathon.
So then it was your definite personal best for sure.
But I broke 4 hours. I was trying to break 4 hours, and I did, like 3 hours and 48 or 9 minutes. I beat it by 12 minutes.
That's awesome. So you set your goal and you beat it. So
I was great pleased with that.
You should be. So, the legend of, you're an interesting fellow, Alan, I have to say. The legend of Chris Moose introduces 11 woodland animals, including the main protagonist, as we said, is a moose. Not a stretch that the focus is on animals. In 1989, you purchased a 96-acre farm called Flying Cross Farm. And I understand the farm's mantra is to give back to the community. Tell us about how all this came about, and tell us what the goal of Flying Cross is.
What all came about that we went up to the horse races near Cincinnati, and before we had interstates, and we were driving back on the 2-lane road, US 42. And when we drove by this farm called Holiday Hill Farm, a friend of mine said, the farm's for sale. We ought to go ahead and take a look at it. So we drove in the driveway, and it's got a 150-year-old log cabin on it, and a barn. And back then it was 110 acres then, but I sold 15 off, so it's now 90 something. And I made an offer, and I go if they didn't accept my offer, and I said, I'm gonna have to go back to work to pay for this farm, and and kind of the rest is history. I fell in love with the farm, and my wife and I moved out there, and we remodeled the log cabin and, modernized it and, put a real kitchen in it. The ceilings were 6'6" upstairs.
Wow.
And we vaulted the ceilings and made them 7 feet by 6 inches, which made a huge difference.
I'm sure it did. Now you have you built a bunch of fences, I understand, for jumping, and you host competitions there.
Well, it was, when I bought it, it was a cattle farm. It was all wire fence.
Okay.
And so when I bought it and made a horse farm, I built 4.5 miles of 3 and 4 board, fence. And, to keep the horses in where they wouldn't get caught in the wire.
And this has become a really important part of your community, hasn't it?
It really has. We have a 3-day event in September, and people come from really all over the country. Most of them from Pennsylvania and Virginia and Maryland and Michigan and Georgia and Alabama and southern Tennessee and Kentucky and all around. We have about 200. We can take 250 entries, and we usually get in the 220s or 230s, and we have a big party on Saturday night. They do dressage on Thursday and Friday, and cross country on Saturday, and then stadium jumping on Sunday. Everybody gets their scores, and on stadium jumping day, if you're in the lead and you don't have any time penalties or rails down, you win. But some people are within 5 points, and if the leader drops a rail, the second place, if they go clean, comes in first. So it's a very tense situation there on, it's like the bottom of the ninth in a baseball game.
Yeah. It sounds like so much fun. So you're a Kentucky native. I understand that this past spring, you attended your 75th Kentucky Derby.
I did.
That's amazing. So what was special about this one?
Well, it didn't happen, but I was supposed to gallop my horse, 45 minutes before the Derby.
Okay.
I was supposed to be able to gallop my horse in my fox hunting red coat and all with my horse, and gallop along with one of the outriders so my horse would have a buddy.
But that did not happen.
But it didn't happen because the somewhere the insurance people or board of directors, I think what happened is the TV people that have the rights, they have the whole program, the whole thing, all the commercials
already set up. Yeah.
All set up.
Oh,
and
sure.
They didn't want a, 30-second blip but maybe it'll happen next year.
Hey, listen, that's something to look forward to. So you're a big lover of animals, going way back when you started Chris Moose, and you're a fox hunter, you ride. The illustrations in here are just really beautiful. I just love it. They're really colorful. They're engaging. Tell us about how your relationship with your illustrator came about. She is Christie Morris. She's been in an artistic career for over 30 years. How did the collaboration come about?
Well, I've gone helicopter skiing with a guy named Donnie Weber. And, we would ski out in Vail and different places out west. And there were 6 of us, and we called ourselves the bowling team.
Okay.
Not the big black ball, but, the back bowls of Vail.
Okay.
And we would get there when we were in our 50s, and we'd ski one blue run, then we'd go to the double blacks and, with the huge moguls on them and ski. And so when I wrote the book, I called my friend Donnie and said, would you illustrate it for me? And he did some line drawings, and I said, that's great. And he said, I'm going to give them to Christie Morris, my illustrator, a great artist, to put in the color and to smooth them up. So she smoothed it up, and we looked at it, and I said, move this a little bit and put the wording here or whatever, made some very, very minor, corrections. And so we ended up with the Legend of Chris Moose,
fantastic.
Color, hardcover copy.
It's beautiful. And the rhyming, of course, always makes it a little bit more engaging, and it's easy to read. And I'm sure parents and grandparents will love to read this to their kids. So getting back to your bio, you're a decorated fighter pilot. You were an investment banker, What is the most important lesson, Allen, that you've learned in life?
The most important lesson. Um, without family and friends, you're nobody.
That's without family and friends, you're nobody.
And you help them, they help you. You play golf, you ride horses, you go scuba diving, you go sailing. Every morning when my wife and I wake up, I turn over to her and say, "What are we gonna do today?"
I love that. Well,
what activity can we do today that we'll remember for the rest of our lives?
That's so
after we get out of bed.
After you get out of bed, yeah. After you get out of bed. Now, that what you just said it's in your book. I mean, Ugly the moose his name is Ugly, but he's got a ton of friends. And I don't want to give away the whole book, but you can see at the end of the book, it's apparent that family and friends is everything. And even with the little animals, it's a great lesson. There's a lovely line in the story, Allen, that I love. It said, I brought no gift to put on the shelf, but open that window, I'll give of myself. Elaborate on what you hope to convey with that lovely line.
Well, he was too big to get, he couldn't fit in the house with everybody else. But Papa Bear had screwed up and he'd forgotten to get the Christmas tree. So how can you have Christmas without a Christmas tree? So Chris Moose said, open the window, I'll give part of myself, and you can make my antlers your Christmas tree. So they decorated with ornaments and tinsels and lights and everything.
So he gave of himself. He was selfless for his friends and his family.
He was.
Yeah, I love that. So what did you enjoy most about writing a children's book? Again, decorated fighter pilot, investment banker, and now you wrote this fantastic children's book. Was it fun?
Oh, it took about a half an hour to write the whole dang book.
Yeah, but it had to be fun when you were collaborating with Christie and doing the illustrations.
Oh, yeah. I mean, after it was written, and then she did the line drawing illustrations, or Donnie did the line drawings, and then she really smoothed them up and, those animals look like they could walk right off the page.
They really do. They really do. It had to be really rewarding to see it come to life after spending 29 years in a drawer.
Yeah.
What does your family think about it, Allen?
Oh, they all love it. I mean, I read it every Christmas Eve.
Oh, that's such a fabulous tradition. I love that.
Yeah, and I'll just, if it happens, it happens. But I mean, I think that, most of us don't get famous until after we die. But
that's so true.
But, if I could get on Oprah, or not Johnny Carson anymore, but whoever the nighttime thing is around Christmas time, and, say, well, we got a guy here named Allen Northcutt who's got a Christmas story that he wrote, in a stupor one night.
Maybe we'll leave out the stupor part. I don't know.
After he'd had a couple of cocktails and his creative juices were flowing.
Let's just say bourbon gave you some inspiration.
Bourbon gave me inspiration.
Yeah, for sure. So is that your hope for The Legend of Chris Moose, A Christmas Story, that it becomes an annual tale that families share?
Yes. I don't really care if I make money off of it. I'd just like it to become, a legendary story that people read to their children because there's a lesson.
And what would you say in a nutshell the lesson is, Allen?
Well, it's an ugly duckling story that, everybody has value. And, every one of the animals brought something special, their own little niche. But Chris didn't have anything because he couldn't fit inside. But then he gave his antlers to be the tree.
I love that.
So, I mean, no matter who you are, if you search hard enough, you will find something that you can give of yourself to be part of a group.
That's a wonderful message, Allen. Thanks so much for sharing this with us. So, finally, Allen, where can everyone purchase The Legend of Chris Moose, A Christmas Story?
I think you can just go online. Probably if you go to your local bookstore and ask them to order it, it's got an ISBN number and all that. And, they can look up The Legend of Christmas.
Fantastic.
And that would be the best, because I always like to buy local rather than, online.
I do too. Small bookstores, but
Small bookstores.
absolutely sounds wonderful. What is the most useful tip in closing, Allen, that you could give an aspiring children's author?
That we all have value.
All have value.
We all have value to our family and friends. And, just, and do the best you can. Nobody's perfect, but, just long as you do the best you can every day with everything that you do, you will have a great life.
Thanks so much for meeting with us today, Allen. Great book, The Legend of Christmas, A Christmas Story, everyone. The holidays are coming up. Go out and get your copy now and share it with your family. It was wonderful meeting you. Thanks for joining us, Allen.
Thanks. Great to be here.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun. Join us next podcast when we speak with David A. Jacinko about his historical fiction novel, Out of the Darkness. This is your hostess, Gabby Olzak. Until next time, keep on reading.